Hi, this is Josh Kulp. We are learning Daf Shevui. We're learning Masechet Avodah Zarah. We are on Daf Lammed Tet. And the beginning of this Daf is all about the issue of eating fish, unidentified fish, usually bought from Gentiles. And there seems to have been some practical problems of particular intensity when it comes to eating fish. One thing is fish often came in a minced form, mushed up, if you will, in which case, excuse me, you didn't know where the fish was coming from. So how do you know that the fish is kosher? The second thing is that the fish often that they were eating are little fish. And sometimes little fish, it's just a little harder to identify the fins and scales, whether it's the right kind of little fish. These two problems probably got combined sometimes, and the rabbis seem to have particular issues with identifying fish. Also, there's some discussion here about the fact that fish can change form. Some fish have fins and scales when they're little, and then they grow out of them, and they lose them, or have scales when they're older, but they don't have them when they're younger. An example of this to this day is swordfish. So there were a lot of issues with identifying which fish can be eaten. And also my assumption is that people ate quite a bit of fish. When you think about it, fish is, in the ancient world, a much easier source of protein. So if you live near a coast, or if you live near rivers, which rabbis in Eretz Yisrael and in Babylonia both either lived in coastal lands or near rivers, a much easier source of protein than raised animals, which you have to feed, or wild animals, which are very difficult in Jewish law, would be fish. So I think that it makes sense that they spent a lot of time talking about the kashrut of unidentifiable fish. The second issue that comes up is something called chiltit, which is a sharp tasting stalk of some sort. And the issue is if it's been cut with a knife that a non-Jew used, the non-Jew will have there'll be some meat fat on that knife. And because of the sharpness of the chiltit, the meat fat is not considered what's called in Hebrew notein tam lifgam, a worsening taste. Now, this is a very important sugya, actually, when it comes to the concept of worsening tastes are or are not prohibited, and what's the issue of sharp foods. I will say that to this day, those who keep kosher will distinguish between sharp foods cut, let's say an onion cut with a dairy knife. Can you eat that onion with meat? A lot of Jews will not, because they say the sharpness of the onion will reactivate, if you will, the milk taste embedded in the knife, and then it'll go into meat, and you'll have milk taste going into your meat. Now, this is not a simple issue. It's not something I can fully explain here. There are leniencies, a lot of leniencies in this, differences between knives that were used this today and knives that weren't used this day, differences between knives that have been cleaned and knives that have not been cleaned. I'll say something that they often say in, let's say, more orthodox podcasts. Don't rely on me. Go ask your rabbi. But if you want to ask me a question, you want to send me some questions, I will do the best that I can, or ask other people here at the Conservative Yeshiva, and we can see if we can help you out. It is an issue of practical halacha concern. The third issue that comes up on this daf is trusting people to who are sort of marrying or intermarrying with chaverim, with rabbinic colleagues, people who are trusted. So a chaver is a colleague, and is a word the rabbis use to denote somebody that can be trusted, whether it comes to tithing, whether it comes to purity laws, and in this case it comes to kashrut laws. But the question is, can his slave be trusted? Can his wife be trusted? What if a wife of a chaver goes and marries the wife of an am haaretz, and somebody who can't be trusted? How do we negotiate these transfers, these transitions from states of being involved in families or with other people who are trustworthy to people who are not? And it's an interesting sugya to see how the identity of people changes depending on who they're associated with, or is their identity stable based on who they are? The fourth issue that comes up is related and has to do with seals, not the art type of seal, but the seals used to protect the identity of things that are sent with non-Jews. When we send something, when a Jew sends something with a non-Jew, can we be sure that he won't switch it with something that's not kosher that looks identical? So the issue comes up with things like unidentified fish, meat, unidentified cuts of meat, wine, for fear that the non-Jew libated it, and tchelet, the blue dye used for tzitzit, which is indistinguishable from dyes that can't be used for tzitzit. It also comes up with milk. Did it come from a non-kosher animal or did it come from a kosher animal? Brine, fish brine, bread, was it baked by non-Jews? And cheese, was it made by non-Jews? And you'll see in the sugya that there are different debates about which things require one seal and which things require two seals. I will say that the rabbis want to make sure that there's at least one seal on all of these things to make sure that the product that one Jew sent to another Jew through the hands of a Gentile didn't get tampered with or switched. And it's still what you see today. You see meat and other kosher products are wrapped. Oftentimes when you get on an airplane especially, you'll see those two seals to make sure that they weren't tampered with. And the final issue is the kashrut of salt. Evidently they used some fish guts or fish fat to flavor their salt and perhaps to grease the salt a little bit. And the question is, can you assume that the salt is kosher? Today, I don't think we have that problem. We don't put fish fat in our salt, thankfully. It's a very interesting daf full of important information with regards to kashrut. I hope you enjoy it. And as always, please do ask questions on our Daf Shevui page.